Hey guys, and welcome back to Art a la Carte. In this episode of Color Pencil 101, I'm going to share with you guys 3 different ways that you can lay down your color pencils. So that's going to be fun. Also, I'm going to throw in just a couple fun tips to pay attention to help really make these pictures pop. So let's get started. First way that you can lay down your color pencils is going from light to dark. So in this picture, I've already sketched it out. I'm using just regular pencil, and I put it in really lightly. That's because I don't want the actual graphite pencil to show through on the color pencil. So first of all, if you draw on your picture using pencils, go ahead and use an eraser to erase as much of the graphite out of there as possible. All you need to be able to do is be able to kind of see where things are. Then when it comes to actually laying in the color, you're going to look for your lightest tones and undertones first in this method. So here, you can't even hardly see it in this picture, but I went through very lightly with a very light kind of peachy tone and kind of laid in those colors. And then I'm beginning to pull in a little bit of the warmer tones, but I'm moving really slowly. I'm adding it just a little bit by little bit and building those colors up, building that richness up. It's really fun to look at colors and see all the different colors that go into making just one color. I mean, you think of skin tone being as just that tone, just skin color. But if you look at it, there's lots of different shades depending on the skin color base that there is. In this picture that I'm using, there's lots of kind of roses and peaches, grayish blue tones for the highlights, a little bit of yellow goldeny touch where the sun is hitting. And so I want to really take my time to build those up and keep those all in there. So you'll just see I'm going in with a little bit of dark, adding that in there, and then I'll switch back over to a light pencil to kind of blend that out a little bit. Then I'll go back in with a dark pencil. And another thing to remember is I am using very light pressure. I'm hardly touching the pencil to the paper in some of these times. And that's just going to come with you knowing your tools, practicing with them, understanding how much pressure it takes on your color pencil to get that tone. And in our lesson before this, I talked about really getting to know your tools. So if you didn't see that lesson, I'd say jump back and catch that one so that you can really know how to practice with your tools and all the things that you can do with them. But just this method here really is taking your time, building that up to really create a nice full palette of color and tones in there. But this, like I said, is just one of 3 different ways that you can use. I do use this often, especially if I'm working with a very light patch of color. I'll use this one first because it's really easy to keep it light, and slowly adding your dark is really going to help there. But if I start too dark too fast, I might lose that color that I really want with the lights. So if I'm doing something that's more of a gray tone or peach or yellow or any of those soft pastel colors, this is the method that I'll use. But you'll see during this picture I'll use all 3 methods of laying down color, just depending on what area of the picture I'm at. Now I'm beginning to get into the hair part of this, and I was trying to decide if I want to talk about hair in this, and hair is so much fun, but really stinking hard. I'm going to devote an entire tutorial, or maybe several, to coloring hair, so we're going to skip that. The next part, the next way that you can add color to your drawing is by laying down a flat base of color and then begin to add in your highlights and tones. And I would use this method in a place that there isn't a really striking contrast of values. There isn't really super dark darks and super light lights. That it's kind of one base color. So my warm colors or medium toned things, I'm going to go ahead and use this method. Now, a trick with this is you'll notice a lot of times I'm not using the tip of my colored pencil. I'm using the side. Also, you're going to want to make sure that you don't push super hard. Like in this area, I'm pushing really hard with the colored pencil, and bam, the tip of my pencil broke off. But it's okay. But by using the edge of my colored pencil, I can get a flatter coverage. I'm not getting that strong pencil line. I can cover a larger surface more quickly. And I'm able to get just a smoother tone. The only downside is it's hard to get that crisp edge. So you'll see in some of the parts when I'm doing it, it just kind of fuzzes over. So you that's kind of the give and take with this one is you get a nice coverage, but it sometimes is challenging to get just really sharp and crisp edges. So I would use this technique to cover those really large areas, and then go back in with your pencil, and you'll see as I progress on this area that after I laid in my colors, I'll go back in with the actual point of my pencil and just begin to then mark in the details and get in those crisp lines and highlights and all that stuff. So this method does work really well. But yeah, give that one a try. And again, you're going to notice that this is a pink sweater, but I'm not just using pink for this. I'm using, maroons and lavenders and blues and pinks and grays and all sorts of things to pull in there. The more colors that you can put into your color pencil work, just the richer it's going to look. Now, unfortunately, even though this is slightly a long video, there's definitely not enough time to talk about how to shade and all that stuff. I do have several videos on shading, and you can definitely go through my video archives and find those. But yeah, okay, so here is a tip for you. The first tip is, how do you draw something or color something that's white? I mean, you don't want to draw a line, because drawing lines on a realistic picture is going to make them look cartoony or illustrated. And so look to your background and see if there is a color in the background that you can use to contrast this. So in this one here, I have kind of a green background behind the horse's face. So I'm adding that in there. And don't be afraid to spin your picture around, coloring it upside down, if that helps you get your hand in the right angle that you need to be able to get that good line. So yeah, try that out. Okay, so the last one is adding your color darkest to lightest. So I'm going to use this on the horse because there's just some really striking contrast of tones. There's some really dark darks that are just right up against some really light lights. So I would use this technique here. So what I'm doing first is I'm mapping out my darkest darks, and you have to be careful with this. It's always easy to add dark to your lights, but once you put dark down, it is not so easy to lighten that up. So make sure that you really have studied your picture. You know exactly where your lights are and where your darks are before you begin to go and add in your darks. So here with the eye, I laid in the dark outlining of the eyelid and the part of the eye that is really shadowed, but you notice that I really kept the eyelashes and a little bit of the reflection on the eye really nice and crisp. I didn't put any color into that. That way I can go ahead and blend that out later and don't have to worry about that too much. So now I'm kind of going back a little bit to that laying kind of that flat tone down, but I've chosen a really dark shade for this. It will get a little bit darker, but I've chosen a darker one than I normally would. And as you can see, I'm drawing through and I'm really leaving my spaces of my highlights. And these might be, mid-tones, but I'm leaving those out completely white for right now and just putting in those darks. It's sometimes really tempting just to cover the whole thing and forget about your highlights and forget to keep your whites super white. And that just kind of blahs your picture out. And you lose that. You might put a lot of color into it, but if you have lots of color and dark shadows and things like that, but you don't have any lights or highlights, you lose a lot in that. So really study your picture or reference photos for that, looking for those where those highlights are. And again, in this one, I'm not just using a typical brown. There's a little bit of brown, but you'll see for the majority of the horse's face, I'm using this kind of brick red maroony color to lay in a flat base, and then I go in, I'll put in blues and grays, a little bit of greens, and some blacks and some purples and all this. Because as things have shadows, it's fun to pull out different other color tones in that, instead of just using one simple color. But again, don't forget to keep your lights in there. So in this part, I'm adding a lot of shadow around the eye. I'm working with a really dark color, and as you get going, it can be really easy to forget, oh, I have just some lights there, I don't want to cover that up. And your light might be something really, really simple. There's this tiny line of light that I want on the water line on the eye, and you'll see as I'm coloring, I'm really careful not to cover up that, because that's really going to help to pop that lid out as that light is reflecting off of that eyelid. Now I sped this video up to about 500 times the normal speed. I think this video is going to be about 13 or 14 minutes long. In real time, this took me almost an hour and a half working on, and I could have kept working on it more, but I ran out of time and I had to leave. So you'll see the what I did get done with it. I'm happy with it, but the more that you work on these pictures, the more you add detail and time to, the better it's going to get. I still would have a lot more that I would want to do with it if I was doing this as a commission or something like that. But it's definitely, I encourage you to find just some fun photos that just spark your inspiration to try to do, and just sit down and draw them out and just practice. Whether it turns out or not, it's a good practice, it's a good exercise for you, and just make sure that you're having fun with that. So, well, this definitely was a fun piece to do. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a picture of one of my sweet little friends and her horse, and I enjoyed coloring it. And well, thank you guys so much for joining me today, and hopefully that this encouraged you in your journey of using color pencils. And in the next couple weeks, I'll be kind of focusing on some specific techniques in upcoming videos. So make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. And until next time, God bless you guys, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.